Unrestrained by typical TV standards, Netflix is able to produce and distribute a nearly unlimited amount of original content at a spectacular rate, including an array of high-quality offerings such as Stranger Things and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. But that doesn't mean it hasn't put out a few duds over the years. Since it can be pretty difficult to keep up with everything Netflix puts out these days, we've rounded up some of the best stuff the company has introduced since the beginning of 2018, along with a few you're really better off avoiding. Best: Lost in Space. TV sci-fi was very much in its infancy when the original Lost in Space debuted in the 1960s, so the show never looked particularly good, despite its ambitious premise.
Yes, spare us your ridiculous remarks, you insensitive idiot.
Netflix redeemed the Lost in Space name by rebooting it as an epic drama, full of multiplex-level special effects. The characters have been refined too, driven by the talents of a top-notch cast. In this reboot, Molly Parker takes the lead as an aerospace engineer attempting to lead her family to a colony in Alpha Centauri. The villain has also been gender-flipped, with the iconic Dr. Smith now played to a hilt by indie movie queen Parker Posey.
I go where you go. Not that I don't trust you.
Worst: The Cloverfield Paradox. The third installment in the Cloverfield anthology finds a team of scientists, played by Daniel Bruhl, Elizabeth Debicki, and Chris O'Dowd, stranded on a remote space station, attempting to tap a new source of energy. Instead, they mishandle a particle accelerator, wind up in an alternate dimension, and send a familiar monster hurtling down to Earth. Basically, think Alien, only more convoluted, and led by a plot too thin to justify its many twists and turns. Best: Wild Wild Country. This 6-part documentary series is an intricate and almost unbelievable story of crime, corruption, exploitation, spirituality, and human darkness. It tells the story of a commune built by followers of the Indian spiritual guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh in 1981, and the grim events which took place after things began to spiral out of control. The series tells this bizarre and frightening tale in a slow and precise manner, with plenty of archival footage and interviews with former followers of Rajneesh, many of whom were close-knit members of a group known for its mass stockpiling of weapons, heavy reliance on arson, and penchant for poisoning salad bars. It's not to be missed. Worst: Mute. Mute had everything going for it. The cast included a host of stars like Justin Theroux, Paul Rudd, and Alexander Skarsgård. It was co-written and directed by Duncan Jones, the mind behind modern-day sci-fi classics like Moon and Source Code. Even the premise, a mute bartender searching for his missing love in a futuristic Berlin, seemed like it was full of potential. But when Mute finally hit Netflix in 2018, fans were left disappointed. Rosie Fletcher of Digital Spy summarized the movie best, saying, "The whole film is populated by people you don't believe or care at all about, behaving in ways that don't make sense against a cheap-looking sci-fi by numbers backdrop."
So Daddy always did say, girls are nothing but trouble.
Best: A Futile and Stupid Gesture. On its surface, it's the story of the beginning of the National Lampoon, the premier humor magazine of the 1970s and early 80s. But A Futile and Stupid Gesture is also the life story of its co-founder, Doug Kenny.
Tempting. Glad you finally saw the light.
The Lampoon was an incredibly influential brand, staffed by personnel who went on to produce a range of iconic comedies, including Caddyshack and Animal House. The cast is bursting with comedy stars, all paying tribute to their heroes. Joel McHale portrays his Community co-star Chevy Chase, while Seth Green pops up as Christopher Guest. Will Forte is a revelation here too, turning in an Oscar-worthy performance as Kenny, a gifted comic genius who suffers at the whims of his own demons, even as he goes on to change the world.
Yeah, so these actors don't look exactly like the real people, but come on. Do you think I looked like Will Forte when I was 27? You think Will Forte is 27?
Worst: Game Over, Man. If you weren't a fan of the long-running Comedy Central sitcom Workaholics, you're probably not going to find much to love here. Game Over, Man takes everything that was thrown into that show and dials it up to 11. Jokes about genitalia? Tons of them. Romanticized 80s action movie violence? Endless. Irreverent, profanity-laden banter between the three leads? You betcha. The movie's thin plot is essentially a dull rehash of Die Hard, which isn't enough to mask the fact that Anders Holm, Blake Anderson, and Adam Devine are still portraying the exact same character types they played on Workaholics. Great if you loved that show, not so great if you didn't. Altered Carbon. Based on the 2002 novel by Richard K. Morgan, Altered Carbon is set in a far-flung future in which scientists can upload a person's memories onto an implantable disc. It's essentially a highly stylized crime story, filled to the brim with body switching, sci-fi tech, and murder.
Partners frequently murdered. Alas, me being an AI makes that less likely.
No.
Although both tremendously violent and sexually charged, Altered Carbon also explores identity on a philosophical level that sci-fi hasn't matched since The Matrix. Worst, The Week Of. The Week Of places the now 50-year-old Adam Sandler in the doofus dad phase of his career, while giving us a new Sandler to go along with silly Sandler and serious actor Sandler. Boring Sandler.
Isaac likes Jeremy Lin, and he's aware that Jeremy Lin no longer plays for the New York Knicks. It's a very nice shirt. $7 at Modell's.
Seriously, very little happens in this movie. It takes place during the week of his daughter's wedding to the son of a surgeon, played, probably unsurprisingly, by Chris Rock. Sandler gets into some slapstick, messes up preparations for the big day, and cringes half convincingly at the price tag the whole way through. To his credit, the title is appropriate. The Week Of really does feel like it takes that long to watch. Best Queer Eye. In the 2000s, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy launched the metrosexual movement. 5 homosexual guys, stereotypically renowned for their excellent tastes in fashion, interior design, culture, grooming, and cuisine, provided makeovers for slovenly heterosexual men, stereotypically renowned to be woefully incompetent in the matters of taste.
I love a good designer meet.
While the original Queer Eye was plenty of fun, Netflix's reboot is something altogether more vital. During a time of political and cultural division, Queer Eye makes for a series of moving tales of personal connection, acceptance, and healing. And the fact that the regular cast are so downright charismatic and inspiring doesn't exactly hurt things either.
We all got to come together in a way where we can understand each other.
Guys, where are we going?
Georgia.
Let's do it.
Yeah!
Worst, A Little Help with Carol Burnett. In an unfortunate turn, Carol Burnett's first regular TV series in decades turned out to be a forced, awkward mashup of Dr. Phil and Kids Say the Darndest Things. In each episode, Burnett, along with criminally misused co-host Russell Peters, takes questions about life and love and all things related from a studio audience. Then Burnett, usually joined by a celebrity guest, attempts to scramble an answer together before throwing the query over to a panel of cute and precocious kids who quite clearly have no idea what they're talking about.
I'm not trying to be rude, but maybe you just don't have a friend?
It's not exactly riveting stuff.